Okay, if we've got 4 over 16, then which multiple goes into both the numerator, that's the numerator, and which goes into the denominator, So we need to think of a multiple which goes into both the top and the bottom. So what goes into the numerator and the denominator? So we've answered this question, but you think of the first question and you then say, okay, we can divide both by 4. So we divide both by 4, then we do 4 divided by 4, which is 1, and 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So we divide both by 4. Now, we're doing equivalent fractions, so the topic is equivalent fractions. If we've got 24 over 32, how do we work that out? What's the first question that you should ask yourself? Now, the first question, the key question you should ask yourself is, what goes into both the numerator and the denominator? Which multiple? So in this case, it's 8. So we can divide the top by 8 and the bottom by 8. So the multiple, if we do 24 divided by 8, we get 3. And if we do 2 divided by 8, that's 32 divided by 8, we get 4. So it's 3/4. So we've simplified this. So it's a simplified fraction. Now we need to remember for this fraction, for this equivalent fraction, is we need to work out the common multiples. So we need to work out the common multiples. So when we're working out the fraction, which number goes into both the 24 and the 32? What goes into the top and the bottom? What number goes? And that's what we need to bear in mind. Now, if we go on to another question, 6 over 18. If we have 6 over 18, just going to go through that again. What goes into both numbers? So the number that goes into both numbers is, so what goes into the denominator and what goes into the numerator? What goes into the denominator and the numerator? Now, the number that goes into both the denominator and the numerator is 6. So the multiples of 6 go into both. So if we divide 6 by 6, so just what goes into both tables is the 6 times table. So 6 divided by 6 and 18 divided by 6. So we simplify it into 1 over third. So we divide 6 by 6 and 18 by 6. So we divide both by 6 and we get 1/3. So we get 1/3 to divide both by the same number. So we should be able to divide both by the same number. So we have a numerator and a denominator. We should be able to divide both by the same number. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. And 18 divided by 3 is 1/3. So equivalent fractions. Whatever goes at the top must go at the bottom. Whatever you multiply by the top, you multiply that by the bottom. Whatever you divide by the top, you divide by the bottom as well. So whatever you do, whatever number you use at the top, you've got to do the same at the bottom. So that's equivalent fractions. To keep them equivalent, we need to do whatever the same things. Okay, so if you multiply the top, then you need to multiply the bottom by the same. And if you divide by the top, then you need to divide the same number using the same number. Is the key word. Divide the bottom by the same number as well. So that's the key point of equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions. So if we've got half and we have a numerator of 2, what goes into the denominator? So the question is, what is the denominator? What is the denominator? So it's 2 over 4. That's 2 over 4. So we multiplied the top by 2 to get 2 and the bottom by 2 to get 4. So 1 times 2 is 2 and 2 times 2 is 4. if we've got half, again we're doing equivalent fractions, and we have a denominator of 6 in the next fraction, how do we move from 2 to 6? How do we move from a denominator of 2 to a denominator of 6? So 6. So we're doing equivalent fractions, so it's equivalent fractions. And this is a question we need to ask ourselves. If we're going to logically work them out, so it's 2 times something is 6. So 2 times a box equals 6. So what goes into that box? 2 times something is 6. What goes in? So it's 2 times 3 is equals 6. So we know that if it's times 3 at the bottom, then it's times 3 at the top. So it gives us 3 over 6. 3 over 6. Again, if we have half and we're multiplying by 4, because 2 times something is 8, so 2 times 4 is 8. So now we've worked out the denominator, we can go work out the numerator. 2 times 5 is 10, so 1 times 5 must be 5, so that's 5 over 10. So 2 times 5 is 10, 1 times 5 is 5, so that's 5 over 10, 5 over 10. Again, we're working with equivalent fractions, fractions that are equal. So half is equal to 5/10. A half is equal to 4/8. Each time we started, we started from half. So each time we started from half. If we've got 19 over 20, if we have 19 over 20 and the denominator is 80, how do we move from 20 to 80? We move from 20 to 80 by multiplying by 4. So whatever we multiply the bottom by 4, we multiply the top by 4. So 19 times 4 is something. So if we partition that, 10 times 4 and 9 times 4, 9 times 4 is 36, 10 times 4 is 40, 19 times